Ash Williams, the super sassy Deadite slaying machine, has had to face innumerable insane challenges, be it the Kaldarian demons and skeletons, tins with swords, or possessed deers and evil sentient hands. He's fought them all and come out on top, always. But it's not just the villains who've been unique to Ash Williams. He's also had the most unique of allies. Of course, one of them was Xena, the warrior princess. In this video, we will explore the 3 miniseries crossovers that are all things Ash and Xena. So let's dive right into the 4-issue Army of Darkness / Xena Warrior Princess. Why not? Before exploring Army of Darkness / Xena Warrior Princess, why not? An Army of Darkness / Xena Warrior Princess forever and a day. Let's begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Army of Darkness, Xena Warrior Princess. What? Again? Autolycus, the Prince of Thieves, ends up running a makeshift S-Mart in ancient Greece, courtesy of Ash. Strangely, he does surprisingly well at running the place as the store manager. For those unaware of who this guy is, well, he's only the most celebrated thief in Greek mythology. Someone who had the power to metamorphose, or make the things he stole invisible. Sometimes, Autolycus' S-Mart would get high-end folks walking down the aisle. For instance, this time around, it was Xena and Gabrielle. Meanwhile, they're being spied on by some mysterious figures who knows his way around magic portals. Meanwhile, in the 21st century, Ash's boring day at S-Mart becomes, well, let's just say, less boring. Customers and employees start turning into Deadites left and right. Knowing that he had to do something about it, Ash jets off to find the Wise Man, who is presently in a Detroit apartment. Of course, the Wise Man could summon people from the past to seek their help. And ta-da! Enter Xena, Gabrielle, and Autolycus, and traveled all the way from ancient Greece to the present to kick some undead butt. But the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, Ash's not-so-safe keepsake, decides to grow wings. Not literally, but you get it, and makes a break for it. What happened was that it started to flap its pages like a bat. The chase leads them to a library where a hooded Deadite opens up a can of worms, a rift to be exact. This rift drags our heroes into the now twisted and Deadite-infested worlds of A Christmas Carol, The Telltale Heart, and The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Needless to say, the Deadites are wreaking havoc, and something needs to be done with immediate effect. After duking it out in these literary lands, Xena, Gabrielle, Ash, and Autolycus find themselves in a Deadite-infested nowhere land. They're fresh out of weapons and looking like sitting ducks until this shotgun-toting boy named Solon shows up. Strangely, he claims Gabrielle is his mom and also says that Ash or Autolycus might be his dear old dad. Before they can sort out his family mess, Solon takes them to the Heart of Darkness, Universe Mart, quite an atypical grocery store. It's where Deadites come from. Inside, they bump into the Oracle, who's actually the Wise Man from the 14th century. Solon also throws light on a time stream mess-up, making this reality Ash's 21st century, not some dystopian future. They were trying to digest this, but they got ambushed by a Deadite clone of Xena. This evil twin was the mother of chaos, and proved so by pulling Ash and Autolycus into a time vortex. Fortunately, Gabrielle and Solon managed to dodge this disaster and head back upstairs. With some magical help from the Wise Man, Xena, Gabrielle, and Solon are sent back to ancient Greece, their correct timeline. But there's no happy ending yet. They find out Ash and Autolycus have become bait for monsters. So, Ash and Autolycus find themselves in a bit of a fix. They were, quite literally, shackled and were facing the wrath of Deadite Xena. But what's a good comic without a few nice backstories, right? So, Deadite Xena starts telling the story of how she came to be. The OG Xena, in an attempt to ditch her inner demon, used the Necronomicon at a magic pool. Did you know that Xena actually caused the deaths of 40,000 people in a village? So yeah, I am glad she was trying to fix herself by any means necessary. Anyway, this became the reason why Deadite Xena came into existence. Furthermore, her quest for power gets a boost thanks to Ash's time-traveling entrepreneurship with that S-Mart that he opened in ancient Greece. You see, it wasn't supposed to come into existence for several centuries. Cut to Xena, Gabrielle, and Solon slicing through Deadites at S-Mart, only for Ash and Autolycus to lockpick their way to freedom. But then Deadite Xena traps everyone but Ash in magical bubbles because she has big plans for him and the Necronomicon. Ash, being Ash, uses the book to send Deadite Xena into a rift and catapult himself to the future, leaving S-Mart to perish. In the final moments, Solon also whispers the identity of his dad to Gabrielle before he fades out. Post-explosion, where S-Mart once stood, there's nothing but sheep and greenery. Gabrielle stumbles upon a photo of Solon, confirming Ash as the dad, and there you have it, a tale of magic, mayhem, and a family reunion that spans centuries. But of course, the story of Ash and Xena doesn't end here. In fact, the next miniseries was actually a prequel to this one. Army of Darkness / Xena Warrior Princess. Why not? So, we are back in 1300 AD, and Ash Williams was duking it out with his mini-me's at an old windmill. Amidst the chaos, one tiny troublemaker, let's call him Ashit, manages to find a mini Necronomicon and rips open a time rift. Next thing you know, he's landed in Xena's era, and with a perfect combination of future tech smarts and a knack for the dark arts, this little guy takes over the fairy kingdom. But, you know, small ponds and all that. He's after bigger fish now. Meanwhile, Ash, in the 21st century, gets a frantic call from the wise men of 1300 AD. Time travel shenanigans happen, and Ash finds himself back in the sword-swinging days of Xena and Gabrielle. The ladies mistake him for their acquaintance, Autolycus, because apparently Ash is his doppelganger. After a bit of a mix-up and almost getting a beatdown from Xena, Ash disappears and slips away to tackle the mission the wise man handed him. After managing to pull off a prison break to save Xena and Gabrielle from execution, Ash and Autolycus find themselves in a fight with Ashit and his fairy minions. The tiny terror's rule ends with a boot stomp from our hero, Ash. But just as they're about to take a breather, Autolycus snatches the Necronomicon and rips open a new time rift. Not wanting to let a book thief get away, Ash, alongside Xena and Gabrielle, dives in after them. They land not where they expected, but in a prehistoric jungle complete with deadite cavemen, a sorcerer, and a T-Rex that's seen better days. They quickly handle the undead and the dinosaur, then return back to ancient Greece, just in time for the last calls. In the end, Gabrielle gets curious about the future. Ash decides to leave a mark by setting up a makeshift S-Mart managed by Autolycus, and staffing it with both humans and fantasy creatures. Despite Xena's worry about timey-wimey problems, Ash asks her to take a chill pill before going back to his own time. Army of Darkness / Xena Warrior Princess. Forever and a day. In this one, Xena finds herself in a tight spot, holding Gabrielle as the Deadites close in. In a last-ditch effort, she rips a page from the Necronomicon, hoping to summon a hero from time to save the day. Cut to Ash Williams, now with a fancy new title at S-Mart, and about to flirt up a storm with Amber. But of course, fate had plans for the sassy Deadite killer, and a time vortex brings him back to ancient times. He lands headfirst in the middle of trouble, and gets captured by some rough types who were ruling over a village. But if you know him, you know that Ash was not really one to stay tied down. He breaks free and single-handedly fights the outlaws. That's when Xena jumps in, mistaking Ash for just another thug. While Xena was trying to figure out who Ash was, Gabrielle got this feeling that they'd met before, but this feeling was slipping away fast. Ash figures he has come to a super wrong era, and convinces Xena to use the Necronomicon to send him back to his own time, which kinda leaves the warrior duo scratching their heads. The poor women were still trying to piece together the elegant mess and whirlwind that had just happened. After another thwarted romantic moment with Amber due to an impromptu time travel, Ash finds himself in a cosmic pickle, courtesy of a space-time guardian fed up with his timeline antics. Ash escapes mid-scold through a portal. Although he wanted to save Xena, he ended up crashing her birth party instead. Back at S-Mart once again, the mood's killed, and Ash is all doom and gloom about his time travel with Xena and Gabrielle. One date night disaster later, Ash returns to ancient times, but by now Xena was living the pirate life, much before Gabrielle's era. Ash gets roped into being her first mate, and during a storm, they find themselves in a place that they simply should not be, the Garden of Eden. Realizing their way out of their depths, Ash convinces pirate Xena to quit this divine heist. She agreed, and Ash gets another express trip to the present, which leaves him to ponder his chaotic travels through time. Ash's time-hopping escapades take another jog to the left, when he lands in the middle of New York City, circa 1945. It's VJ Day, but for Ash, it's more like D-Day, when he bumps into Melinda Pappas and Janice Covington. These two were archaeologists, but they were also the spitting image, or should we say reincarnations, of Xena and Gabrielle. The women were hot on the trail of some Nazi goons who'd gotten their hands on the Necronomicon. While they're laying low, waiting for the Nazis to slip up, Melinda reveals some hard-hitting and rather surprising facts to Ash. She tells him that she knows him from the Xena scrolls. Before Ash can wrap his head around how exactly he ended up on scrolls from the past, Deadite Nazis reveal their presence. Figuring it's time to bring out the big gun, or in this case, Xena's spirit, Ash plants one on Melinda, and just like that, the warrior princess is back in action. What follows is a no-holds-barred fight that ends with Ash sending the Nazi sub to sleep with the fish. Once the dust settles, and Melinda snaps back to her regular self, she hints to Ash that these random jumps through time and encounters might just be the universe's way of saying something deeper. Maybe, just maybe, there's a method to this madness, pointing Ash towards his next big adventure across the fabric of time and history. After living in the future for half a century, Ash turns into a silver fox, waiting for that one last call to arms from Xena. He has basically turned his former S-Mart into a waiting room. Finally, his patience pays off, and he finds himself amidst a bar crawl with Xena and Gabrielle. Ash presents himself as the ambassador from Graceland, and manages to convince the duo to serve as his bodyguards on a mysterious ocean voyage. Things get dicey when their ship hits a sandbar, and they're forced to row to a hidden island. Now, it's here that Xena clocks the older Ash as her former first mate, but before they can trip down memory lane, a flaming arrow leaves their rowboat on fire. The three of them swim to shore, only to be met by an army of Deadites, and a guy in a loincloth who introduces himself as Steve, the first man ever made. Steve had a bone to pick since losing Eve, and decided raising a Deadite army to take out Ash, Xena, and Gabrielle was the way to go. The final fight is awesome but brief, with our heroes slicing through Deadites like butter. Ash wrapped things up with his chainsaw on Steve, which effectively ended his reign before it really got going. With the bad guys beat, Ash shares a bittersweet goodbye with Xena and Gabrielle, knowing they can't call him back again. He jumps into a time portal, which also de-ages him, and he lands back at Esmar, back at his prime, and just in time for his shift. Ash finally scores that kiss from Amber, which ends his adventures through time, and battles with a somewhat normal night at Esmar. Marvelous verdict. So yeah, that wraps up this one. Army of Darkness / Xena, Forever and a Day, which, no joke, is a blast of a crossover from Dynamite. The only issue is the groundwork, but still, I think it's far from dull. Elliot Fernandez's art was nice. He paired perfectly with Pete Pantazzi's colors to bring the crossover to life. As far as the previous two stories are concerned, not a lot of explanations were provided for all the time traveling that Ash does. At times, I just had to make my peace with whatever was happening because there was no sensible way to explain things. I mean, yes, this is a crossover story of people like Ash and Xena, so nothing really could be very logical, but come on, at least make it slightly believable, right? But hey, that's just me. What did you think about the whole thing?
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.